Paul Yaffe here, Paul Yaffe's Bagger Nation. Today's video topic is I am introducing our pre-wired monkey bars. That's right. Now you can get our world famous monkey bars pre-wired at our factory, ready for plug and play install on your 14 and later touring model. So today I have not seen the instructions that my crew has written about installing these bars. I am going to take my brand new 2019 Harley-Davidson Road Glide. I'm going to take it apart per my factory manual and get the handlebars up here on the bench, and then we are going to open this box together and we're going to go through the instructions and see just how painless and simple this process becomes when you choose our pre-wired options. So let me get this taken apart. Give me a few minutes, we'll get it apart, come back and join me, and we'll get through this. So I've removed the stock handlebars from the Road Glide. I've removed the switch housing cases, and I'm ready to pull the wires that we need for the monkey bar install out of the handlebars. So the twist grip just slips right off. The switch housing unclips from the bar. You don't even need these control wires, so you just put a little pick in here, pop these off, and these little switches come right out. So that's one of the coolest things about the 14s, is that the plugs just unplug from the stock switch housing and they release the switch housing. So these are your control wires. These are already pre-installed in your new set of monkey bars. But what you're going to reuse is the twist grip sensor. This controls the butterfly operation on your electronic fuel injection. The larger wire with the green tape on it, and these two connectors, that is your twist grip sensor control wire. So that's what you're going to want to feed these wires into this hole, and then you're going to want to start removing. So you just feed some in, pull out the slack. Feed some in, pull out the slack, and just repeat that process. Just be careful when you're putting your clips into the hole in the bar, that you're not catching them and tugging on them or anything. It might be easier if you let the control wires come out with this, because they're kind of going to be dragging on each other, but boom, there's the twist grip sensor. That's what you need. You're also going to want to unplug the other switch housing. And again, your connectors. So we want to remove the clutch side switch housing too. There's on top of it, you can release the plug. That is where the control wires plug into the switches. And then there's a little tab here right next to the plug you release, and it allows your switch housing to fall open. Off it comes. Controls wire stays on the bar. Okay, once you've gotten the twist grip sensor pulled from your stock handlebars, the next thing the instructions are going to ask you to do is to cut the original sheathing from the sensor harness. So that's this vinyl sheathing that is over the stock harness. This sheathing is super sticky and it's very flexible, and it's the worst thing you could possibly have for wanting to run internal wires through your handlebars. What I'm going to use is this sheathing tool. Basically, this is a fancy snap-on sheathing removal tool. You can get a seamstress stitch cutter at any fabric store, supply store for $2. So, you can use a razor blade if you want, but you risk the possibility of cutting your wires. I'm going to use my handy dandy sheathing removal tool. So what this does is this basically just slips inside, doesn't compromise the wires, and makes removing the sheathing super duper easy. Careful not to remove the sheathing from your fingers. So that made pretty easy work of splitting the sheathing. Okay, now that I've got my wires uncovered, the next thing I want to do is the connectors that are on the end make it difficult, one, to put shrink tubing on, and two, to run through your handlebars. So the female connector that has the black and the white wire running to it, this is for your heated grips. That's the only thing it does. If you're running heated grips, you need this connector. If you're not running heated grips, you don't need the connector. But what I'm going to show you how to do is remove that heated grip connector because it'll make running the wires that much easier. So the connector is small. There's these little terminals inside. There's a diagram in the instructions that shows you how to do it. You need a little pin. I made this little tool out of a stiff piece of wire. That's what I use to undo these connectors. You can use a safety pin, maybe a good stiff paper clip. What you want to do is if you look down inside the connector, you'll see the two pins there. First thing you want to do is take a silver Sharpie and mark on the side of the pin connector, the connector housing, right there like I did, mark where the white wire goes. I put a nice silver mark there so I know when I'm putting it back together later where the white wire goes. Then what you want to do is take your little handy dandy tool, safety pin, paper clip. You can see where the little clip is. You just put it in there, hold it down, and pull your wire out. Take your time and locate the pin connector and lift the tab up. And it releases your wires. So now my pins are free. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to recover this harness with the provided shrink tubing. In the instructions it says as you're putting this shrink tubing over the wires, as the wires start to get deep, they get harder and harder to push into the shrink tubing. Feel free to cut this shrink tubing in half, cut it in 3 pieces if you want. Then you just have little short pieces to slip over. It makes life a little easier. So I'm going to take this shrink tubing, I'm going to cut it in half. And if you want to, also something you can do that makes life easier is in this kit we've provided you with a little silicone lubricant. You can rub a little bit of it on the connectors. I like to use a little WD-40 type solution I spray on there. What I'm going to do, a little bit will do you. So I'm just going to put a little Zep Preserve on there. Makes the wires a little slippery. So what I'm going to do is just start sliding my wires, feeding them through the shrink, a little bit at a time. See, as I start to get deep, the wires want to bend a little bit. But look, they popped out the other side. I'm going to slip that right down to where it needs to be. Then I'm going to take the second piece of my shrink, of which I don't even need the whole shrink, and I wouldn't use it because I'm going to have you use a little of this later to make your wire. So to make your wire, your guide wire. So cut off just what you need. There I go. I'm going to put on my second piece. And again, just pushing the wires an inch at a time, sliding them through the provided shrink tubing. And look at that, out the other side they go. So what I'm going to do is where I cut, I'm just going to overlap the shrink tubing and slide one over the other a little bit. So it makes one shrink done. Now these wires are covered in new shrink tubing. Some guys use a little propane torch, a little propane butane soldering. I wouldn't use a cigarette lighter, it'll take you forever, but that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm just going to start shrinking this wire. And you watch as I start to apply heat to it, the shrink tubing starts to contract around the wires, making a nice tight harness. So now I've shrank all the shrink tubing. I'm going to see if my friendly cameraman can focus in on this and show you just how tight this has gotten. And now when I go to wire this through the handlebars with my guide wire, I can push these in and then pull them out the other side. Now we're going to move on to step number 3, which is putting your wires in your handlebars. Now I am going to take the provided pull wire that's in the handlebars and I'm going to make it connect to this wire. So at this point what I'm going to do, I'm going to set my twist grip sensor right up here. going to set my little pin connector and stuff over, and I'm actually going to take the new monkey bars out of the box and introduce you to the new monkey bars. So when you open the box, you're going to find this nicely wrapped set of monkey bars. You're going to need a set of wire cutters because the monkey bars are zip tied into the box so they don't move around. Okay, so now we're ready to work. You guys have probably already done this because there's a rubber band on each end securing the cotton sock. We'll grab a blade or a pair of scissors. Be super careful when you cut through this plastic. Just pull it away from the handlebars. The packing is there for a reason. It's there to protect the finish of the handlebars. Don't reverse that protection by putting a mark in your own bars. So, in this case, we have a nice, beautiful set of 10-inch chrome monkey bars. I'm going to slip the cotton sock off, and what I'm going to reveal is a nice, factory-installed, pre-wired monkey bar. On this particular case, I think I'm going to find the beginning of the cellophane wrap and just unwrap it rather than trying to cut this protective wrapping off and risk damaging the bars. Okay, so what I've got here is a nice pre-wired set of monkey bars. You've got your control harness wires sticking out of each end. This right here is copper pull wire. It's already run through the bars, and that's what you're going to use to pull your twist grip sensor right through the pre-wired bars. I'm going to cut this one zip tie off the bottom here, which is going to release my extended control wires and the control wire, the throttle sensor, that wire that the copper wire that I'm going to use to pull the twist grip sensor in. I'm going to take the kink out of the wire. I'm actually going to turn this around this way so you guys can see better. So there's your copper wire. It's got a little hook bent on the end of it, which it talks about in the instructions, making a little eyelet on the end of the wire. So cut eyelet off of pull wire, then at 1.5 inches. Okay, so we're going to cut this eyelet off of the pull wire. Then at about 1.5 inches, which I'll guess that's about 1.5 inches, it says to bend the wire 90 degrees. Then at 1/4 inch, bend it again. So I guess what they're asking you to make is a U-turn. Like that. Got it? So now what I've done is I've made a nice end loop. Then what it's going to tell me to do, it's going to tell me to take my twist grip sensor, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this wire to the end of these wires. So now what I'm going to show you, we're going to close up here and I'm going to show you Paul's secret tip for easy wiring of handlebars. It's just a matter of hooking up the guide wire in a unique situation, putting a little shrink tubing over it and making it foolproof. So watch closely as I show you the secret tip. So what I'm going to do here is I've made my U in the guide wire like the instructions said. What I like to do with my twist grip sensor is take the U and I want to feed it right between the two black wires, red wires and white wires. So basically the U is wrapped around the connector, but it's pulling. So if you have to guide this connector through the handlebar, the wire is going to keep the connector straight. Got it? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of our remaining shrink tubing. Got to cut a couple inches, 3 inches. You're not going to need any more, so no big deal. And actually, what I should have done is put the shrink over this first, then put my guide wire on. So now what I'm going to do, got it, is I'm going to take this guide wire, I'm going to pinch it on the connector, I'm going to pull it tight like that, so it's see how it's catching it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock it onto the connector. But see how what I've made is I've made a lock so it can't come undone. So go ahead, twist the guide wire a little more, get it good and hooked on there. See what I've done there? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these other connector wires, I'm going to fold them down like so. Then I'm going to take my shrink, I'm going to slip it back up over the unconnected wires, and I'm going to cover, see what I'm doing there? I'm covering the guide wire. Now I'm going to shrink this down, and it's going to make this nice tight package. So now I have this really nice tight package, and the pull wire, the guide wire, as you pull a little and push and push and push and pull out the slack, it's going to keep this whole thing going straight through the bar. It's not going to let anything bind up. The shrink tubing is going to keep it nice and tight. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to finish my little twist here. I'm going to cut off the excess. This is now ready to install, and this, as it's going through the bar, will just keep everything perfectly pulling straight. That'll make life super, super easy. That's my tip. Do yourself a favor. When you get ready to do this, I have a rubber pad here, but find a nice soft surface. Go get a pillow or a nice beach towel or something from your house that you can lay these bars down on as you pull these wires through, push them and pull them, that you're not scooting these handlebars back and forth on your workbench or on your garage floor. Don't laugh, people do it all the time. So one of the biggest misconceptions or the biggest mistakes people make when they're internally wiring handlebars is they use the guide wire, and that's what this is. It's a guide wire. I know we call it a pull wire, but it's really meant just to guide the connectors through the corners of the bars. I mean, these corners, even though they're clean on the insides and they're not sharp edges, you're still asking the wires to make a U-turn. They don't naturally want to do that. And then after you've told them to make one U-turn, then here you're going to ask them to make another U-turn. So it's the simplest way to combat this, or to make it easy, the problems is when I say combat, is push the wire in. That's why we cover it with this stiff shrink tubing. That's why we provide this. This is like $6 worth of shrink tubing. That's why we give it to you, is because you push the wires in. See how I'm pushing it in? And it's so stiff I can push up, I can feel the tension as it gets here. Then you grab the guide wire and pull the slack you just created out. You push it in, pull it out. Push it in, pull the slack out. And it's just like an inchworm. You're just inching it through the bars, and it makes everything easy. You don't have to sit here and have your buddy stand on the handlebars while you've got this wrapped around a wrench and you're, flexing your biceps, pulling it. All you're going to do is rip your wires up. Again, you're going to feel some tension. You have to pull some, right? You have to pull the slack out because you're going around corners. But look at this. Look what I'm doing. I just want you to see how easy that I'm pushing this stuff through. I'm pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. So while I was talking, let me show you what's already coming out the other side. Ta-da! My connector. That's how easy. I'm already through these bars. I've already gone through both of these without having to pull anything. So I'm pushing my wire in, pulling out the slack. So my first connector, my only connector really, is already through the handlebars. Got it? So I'm there. Yeah. So now I'm just going to continue to push slack in, pull the wires out, right? Push slack in, pull it out. Push slack in. See how I'm feeding this through? And then once you're through, it's just that much easier to pull it through. Just push it and pull it. If you do get caught, or if you do have some problems, what you can do, one thing that's cool is we put these two holes in the bottoms of these handlebars for a reason. Sometimes as you're guiding wires through, it's hard getting around the second corner. But you can see your connector. We put these holes in so you can actually go in and fish your connector around the corner if you need to. If you set your guide wire up right, like I've done here, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes some tips on different ways of setting up your guide wire, it's just cake. Yeah, it's not a difficult thing to do at all. So what I'm doing right now is I'm pushing slack in, pulling it out. Pushing slack in, pulling it out. And it goes, an inch or two at a time. But you've only got, 20, 30 inches of wire, so it's not going to take very long. So as you get through, look at the notches on your twist sensor.
Look at these notches here and make sure they line up with the notches on the bars. You don't want to get all the way down here and then find out you're 180 degrees out, right? So I can see right now that I have to turn mine about 90 degrees. So now it's easy. Push the slack in, pull it out. Push the slack in, pull it out. Push the slack in, bottom the bar out. I'm done. It's really an easy process. These bars are now ready to reinstall back on the bike. They're fully internally wired, and the pre-wired monkey bars are huge, huge time savers. And then basically now that you've got these things pre-wired, now you're just going to go right back, reverse the steps. You're going to take your switch housings, put them back on the bars, plug your connectors into the switch housings, put your controls back on. You're going to walk the bars over. You're going to put them on back on the bike. All the bars have predetermined factory holes in them. They're all slotted, so you have adjustment in your handlebars. All the factory components bolt right back on these Road Glide Road King handlebars. So thanks for watching. Good luck. Thanks for choosing Bagger Nation products. Have a great day.